There are now massive protests in the Gaza Strip. People are pouring in towards the border, not past the border, into Israel. The border is obviously between Gaza Strip and Israel. So they are getting to about within 200 meters or yards of the border. No one has actually crossed it. And Israel has begun to fire on them. So I'm going to give you all the details here, what has happened, why it's happened, and what my perspective on it is at the end. So the Palestinian Health Ministry, according to the Washington Post, said Monday that the number of Palestinians killed Friday rose to 18 after a 29-year-old man died of his injuries. So 18 deaths already, which is significant given that it is a protest. Okay, let's find out more. The ministry has said 758 people were wounded by live fire on Friday, a figure disputed by Brigadier General Ronan Manelis, who's an army spokesperson, who said he believes several dozen Palestinians at most were wounded by live rounds and the rest by tear gas and rubber-coated steel pellets. Now, I want you to notice that he's not saying that 750 people didn't get injured. Some reports now have it up as high as 1,000 people. He's saying, no, we shot some of them with real bullets and others we shot with tear gas and rubber-coated steel pellets. That doesn't make it dramatically better. And it is disputed by the Red Crescent and Palestinian Health Ministry, who say that over 600 people with bullet wounds were transported in ambulances. So we're going to show you video in a second of the shootings so you can make your own assessment as to whether those folks actually got shot and why they got shot. Now, let me give you more from the Post. Allegations of excessive force and unlawful shootings were prompted by the death toll. Friday was the bloodiest day in Gaza since the 2014 Israel-Hamas war, and comments by military officials that, quote, the main instigators were targeted. So that's another really interesting admission in a sense. I'm not sure they realize they're doing an admission by the Israeli Defense Forces, because they were claiming, and you'll see more of this in a second, that, hey, we're just shooting people that we have to shoot. Well, the only people you're allowed to shoot under international law are people that are putting your life in imminent threat. But if you're saying, no, I'm shooting the main instigators, well, then you're saying you're picking out people from a crowd that you'd like to shoot and executing them. So some of them get shot in the legs and survive. Obviously, you can tell by the hundreds of people who've gone to the hospital, but some of them are executed on the spot. They're dead. And in one of the videos, unfortunately, you'll see that as well. Now, the military's open fire policies came under more scrutiny as amateur videos emerged purportedly showing 2 Palestinians being shot, 1 killed and 1 wounded, while not posing any apparent immediate threat to soldiers. Now, I'm going to show you those 2 videos. Now, obviously a warning here, because one of the folks here not only gets shot but killed. But I've got to show it to you so you understand what this actually looks like and who's telling the truth and who's not telling the truth, and whether this guy was about to cause imminent harm to an Israeli soldier. Let's watch. He died. In case you couldn't tell, the border is the large brown mound in the back. He's running away from the border. He's got his back to the border. Israeli Defense Forces saying, well, earlier we thought he was doing terrorist acts. First of all, that's earlier. You don't get to execute people who you thought might have been doing something wrong earlier. Second of all, so what are these terrorist acts that you claim? Well, he was burning a tire. He's burning a tire 200 yards away from the border. That's what we're calling terrorism now? Look, I'll get into my take right now. So first off, there were two guys at least, it appears. The Israelis say this, but it's backed up to some degree by reporting on the ground. There were two guys who had opened fire on the Israeli soldiers. That's a no-brainer. The soldiers are gonna fire back and they got killed. I don't think that's an issue. Firing at the soldiers is a terrible idea. They're trying to kill them. Somebody fires at you, you get to fire back. So you put those two guys aside, Israel should look at all the killings, but that's gonna be a relatively easy one, okay? But everyone else, they don't claim was firing at the soldiers. Even the Israelis don't claim they were firing at the soldiers. They say they were throwing rocks. Now the Israelis are behind a giant mound, okay? And they're 200 meters away. If you get closer, they shoot you and kill you. So a guy is gonna throw a rock 200 yards, 200 meters, and going to hurt an Israeli soldier so badly that he thinks, I gotta execute the guy on the spot. Really? And I know some people are so blinded now because of the rage involved in this controversy and this endless conflict. But they think, oh yeah, if anyone is trying to throw a rock at me, I mean, think about it, that's 2 football fields. Who can throw a rock over 2 football fields? If anybody's gonna try to throw a rock at me in that distance, I'm gonna execute them. I'm gonna shoot them dead, and that's justifiable and totally fine. I don't think they should throw rocks. I don't think they should burn tires. It's pointless. I think that they're almost there. You've got a mass demonstration there. Now, a lot of people are not gonna agree with me, but I said this actually years ago, and they're now almost at a point where they're doing that idea that I talked about. Walk, don't shoot, don't throw rocks, don't burn tires, don't do anything but walk. Just walk forward. Now that is what the Israelis are afraid of. And hence, I think what they're trying to do here is send a message. If you walk, we will execute all of you. So they've executed 18 so far. And say the 2 guys shooting, forget them, 16. So, I mean, those 2 guys shooting were also human beings, but like I now said over and over, I think that's justifiable. Okay, now I'm gonna show you one other guy who they say these are all imminent threats to them. Another guy who was shot, this guy didn't die, but look at this so-called imminent threat. Now I know for the West, because of the propaganda, anytime you hear a Muslim say Allahu Akbar, people get scared. Oh my God, what does that mean? It means God is great. I believe Christians believe that, Jews believe that, a lot of people believe that. It's just Arabic words for God is great. When you see Muslims praying, I know because of the propaganda in the West, a lot of people are like, whoa, what are they doing? They're praying to God like you do in church. And that guy got up from a prayer and was walking back towards the encampment, not towards the border, shot in the leg. Imminent danger. Again, they're 200 meters away from the border and the guy is walking back towards the encampment, not towards the border. Okay, there's no imminent threat here. Rights groups said it is unlawful to use lethal force when protesters don't pose an imminent threat. They say that because it is absolutely true according to international law, but when has the right-wing government of Israel ever cared about international law? And then they go, oh, I don't, like in the immortal words of Joe Scarborough about why terrorists attack the US. They hate us because they hate us. Or maybe they have an issue with getting shot while walking away from you. But no, you don't want to do any self-reflection. That would be a left-wing idea to do self-reflection. Hey, what can we do to fix the situation? Oh, you liberals trying to solve things. No, see if you can execute your way out of this mess. You've been trying it for 70 years now. Has it worked yet? Now, Israel says soldiers followed strict rules of engagement, but would not say in which cases they used lethal force. So we kind of follow rules, but we're not going to tell you what rules and when. So how did all of these protests begin in the first place? The idea for the mass marches was first floated by a Gaza social media activist several months ago and was later adopted by Hamas, which seized power in Gaza in 2007. So again, I think the idea, as long as they keep it nonviolent, is brilliant. A mass of people saying this border is not legitimate. It's not to go inside in Israel, do any damage. If you ask me, what I would do is I would cross the border, I'd go 100 yards and then walk back. It is not to say we're staying. Now, they don't necessarily agree with me on that point of view. I'm going to tell you what their point here is in a second. But Israel has left them very, very little choices. We'll talk about that as well. Let me give you more context. Thousands had marched to the border at the start of a 6-week protest dubbed the Great March of Return. That's what they're calling this. Palestinians have pitched 5 camps near the border for the protest. They are demanding that refugees be allowed to return to homes that are now in Israel. And there's 5 encampments that you can see on a map across the border. And a great number of people have now showed up. In Friday's march, the Post says thousands of Palestinians, Israel estimated a turnout of 35,000 people headed towards the border area along several points. So this is as much of a mass protest as I have perhaps ever seen, certainly in this area. Now to the BBC, they report the Great March of Return protest started on Friday as of March 30th marks the Land Day, which commemorates the killing of 6 protesters by Israeli security forces during demonstrations over land confiscation in 1976. Now that was a day of outrage back in 1976. 18 people just died, 3 times as much, but unfortunately the Palestinians have gotten used to the deaths. But here they're of course fighting back in largely non-violent ways. The great overwhelming majority of the 35,000 have done nothing violent whatsoever. Now there's the picture of the Israeli soldiers. They claim an imminent threat as someone might throw a rock 200 yards away from that bunker right there, which is of course the border. The protest is scheduled to end on May 15th, which Palestinians call the Nakba, or the catastrophe, and which marks the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians during the conflict surrounding the creation of Israel in 1948. And of course, both sides have their different histories about who was at fault and who attacked first. And so the Palestinians will say, well, we lived there, and then they said it was now Israel, and then conflict arose and we were driven out. The Israelis will say, the UN said we were Israel, and then they attacked us out of the blue. There's elements of absurdity to all sides of the story. Okay, and by the way, that's the same Israel that now is saying the UN, we should never listen to the UN. If they condemn us, it's because they're all anti-Semites and always set against Israel. If they were always set against Israel, why did they vote to create Israel in the first place? Interesting question. Anyway, Gaza's continued border closure has made it increasingly difficult for Hamas to govern, as the Post explains. Life in the coastal strip has deteriorated further in recent months, with rising unemployment, grinding poverty, and daily blackouts that last for hours. So understand what's happening. Israel and Egypt, their ally, have closed the borders to the Gaza Strip for over a decade. They say, we're not gonna let anything in or out without our permission. And so it is basically the world's largest open air prison. It houses 2 million people. They do not control their own land. They do not control their own borders. And if Israel wants to prevent weapons from coming in, that's understandable. But they've extended the blockade to everything else. And they have to request that things be allowed in, and then Israel gets to make the decision. The Palestinians are not free people. They are not allowed to make their own decisions. So, and in that embargo, those 2 million people, I mean, how in the world are you gonna get a job? It's amazing that there's any employment in Gaza Strip. They're closed off from the rest of the world in this giant open air prison, occupied, and there's never any relief. So if there's violence, they go to war. There's been 3 different wars between Israel and the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip. If there is no violence, there's no reward. And now they do a protest, and then there's executions. And then they go to the UN, the Palestinians do, the guy, Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority that controls the West Bank, a different part of the Palestinian territories, goes to the UN and asks for statehood, and the Israeli right wing says, how dare you? Well, wait a minute. They can't seek a diplomatic solution. They apparently can't seek a peaceful solution. They can't seek a violent solution. That makes sense. And then some people say, well, all right, let's seek an economic solution, divestment, the BDS movement. They go, oh my God, that's the worst of all. How dare you, you monsters. So you can't do economics, you can't do politics, you can't do diplomacy, you can't do anything. What can you do? When is this ever going to end? How long are these people going to be occupied before we realize that it isn't working? It isn't keeping Israel safer, and it's certainly not a way for human beings to live. I have, unfortunately, more context here. So now we move to Hamas. Hamas, the militant group that has controlled the Gaza Strip since 2007, does not recognize Israel's right to exist, but last year said it was ready to accept an interim Palestinian state limited to Gaza and the West Bank. Now, Hamas plays this ridiculous game where they say, no, we don't think Israel exists. You might think that, you might not think that. It's entirely irrelevant because Israel does in fact exist. They're the ones shooting at you. They're the ones that control your borders. What is this crazy game where you say, no, I don't think they exist? Now, they think that that's a clever negotiation strategy, and there in that quote you see from the Washington Post, they have signaled that they are willing in negotiations to say that Israel does in fact exist. It is a terrible negotiation strategy. The right wing in Israel then goes, see, they don't even recognize our right to exist. But you don't recognize their right to exist. That's why you're occupying them. One side, it's theoretical. The other side, it's incredibly real. I can't stand either one of those games. I think Hamas is totally wrong in that strategy. Ismail Haniyeh, senior political leader for Hamas, furthermore says there is no alternative to Palestine and no solution except a return, meaning to return to Israel proper and get their homes back. I know a lot of Palestinians feel deeply that is the right and moral solution. And they are not going to like what I'm going to say next. That is totally unrealistic. There might be, in negotiations, some symbolic right to return for a couple of grandmothers and grandfathers. But you are not going to return millions of people into Israel proper. It's just not going to happen. We need to have a negotiated solution. We must end the occupation, but the alternative cannot be unrealistic solutions. I know you're supposed to hammer this out in negotiations, but they won't do negotiations. Now, Israel says the Palestinians won't, the Palestinians say Israel won't, but you ask even US representatives like John Kerry, our Secretary of State, and it is exceedingly clear, even though the US is a massive ally of Israel, it is exceedingly clear from their comments that it is the right wing, not all of Israel, it is the right-wing government of Israel that currently occupies power that has no interest in negotiations. Now they're talking about two-state, some are saying in Israel in the right wing, no, not two-state, one state, we just occupy them forever. Sometime maybe we'll just even take that land and we'll expand our settlements further and further and further. Because now you have fundamentalist religious zealots on the Muslim side, but you also now have fundamentalist religious zealots on the Israeli side who say, God promised it to me 2,500 years ago. And Yahweh says it's mine, so I don't care about your family. They're in my way. And this brutal occupation continues and continues. Now we go to Major General Eyal Zamir for Israel. He says, we are identifying attempts to carry out terror attacks under the camouflage of riots. But wait, you just told me there's 35,000 people there, and I saw the pictures, I saw the videos. 35,000 people are not rioting. There are definitely some people throwing rocks and the tires, as I explained, but not all 35,000, not even the majority, not even close to the overwhelming majority. So it is largely a protest, a peaceful protest. So the terrorism is disguised in the form of riot and disguised in the form of a protest. Well, if you can't protest, what can you do? Nothing, nothing. Just bow your head and accept the occupation. That appears to be the right-wing Israeli position. They say that a 100-meter wide area in Gaza along the fence had been defined as a no-go zone. In reality, it is about 200 meters. And a no-go zone does not mean you get to execute everybody in it, but that apparently is their interpretation. Earlier on Friday, in a separate incident, by the way, you saw the dangerous guys in the video. Well, this guy, apparently even more dangerous. Earlier on Friday, in a separate incident, a Palestinian farmer identified as Amr Samur, 27 years old, was killed by an Israeli tank shell while he was working his field before dawn in southern Gaza, the Palestinian Health Ministry said, and there are witnesses to it. You know how far his farm is from the border? 1 kilometer. He's not even in the protest. He was farming. Well, maybe he was farming some dangerous stuff, so let's find out. Yasser Samur, a relative of the farmer killed by a shell, Amr Samur, said Amr was harvesting parsley before dawn in hopes of selling it fresh in the market later in the day. Parsley. They fired a tank shell. You thought you were in imminent danger from a guy 1 kilometer away planting parsley, and you just had to kill him. This is not good for anybody. They have to find a way to end this occupation. Look, it is super easy for me to say, sitting in a comfortable studio, that they should walk, because a lot of them will die. But it would be the bravest thing I have ever seen. Way smarter and way braver than an act of violence, a suicide, bombing. All of that is absolutely pointless, immoral, and counterproductive. But if 35,000 people or more walk to the border, and they stated their intention that we're not going to go and just occupy Israel. How the hell would they occupy Israel anyway? They have no weapons. If they stated their intention to simply symbolically cross that border, or in areas where there's a wall, yeah, to tear down the wall. And if they declared ahead of time, Mr. Netanyahu, tear down that wall, and they went and did it, it would be amazing. But they must keep it nonviolent. If they keep it nonviolent and the Israeli Defense Forces start executing them en masse, they will lose the world. At some point, I know how many resolutions have been passed against Israel. I know the United Nations has been relatively clear. I know that the United States is an immovable object, and they will block every vote in the United Nations that has any force. But at some point, the entire world saying enough has got to make a difference. For God's sake, do not do violence. This is an amazing protest. If you can, and like I said, I don't know that I would do it, and it would take extraordinary courage, walk to the border. What you just watched was one of the videos that we do today, but we actually do a whole 2-hour show every single day. It's a podcast. You could watch it in video or listen to it as audio. You can download it, you can stream it, and you get it completely ad-free if you could become a member of the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.